Do you think that the 21st century has ushered in an era where what we might call the traditional values that our parents and our grandparents believed to be the things to hold society together and community together have essentially vanished?
Yes, and I loved the way you began with Philip Larkin, one of my favorite poems of all time, because, of course, he warns that parents can indeed F you up. But actually, what we've seen is a government that, when it comes to families, when it comes to married parents, is very, very shy of supporting parents do the very best they can. And the Center for Social Justice has again and again done surveys to show that actually propping up the family is one of the most popular policy initiatives with the country as a whole. So why the reluctance? Well, the reluctance is they don't want to look like John Major's family values government, which did smack of hypocrisy because so many of the ministers were caught with their pants down whilst they were spouting family values. But the country as a whole is ready to hear about families and also to hear about marriage. I think that what we are seeing, especially since lockdown locked us in with our families and with our parents and with our children, what we're seeing is a resurgence of faith in the married structure. Here is an institution that keeps children from going into jail, children from trying drugs, children from becoming homeless, from being excluded from schools. The data is all there. Children of married parents fare much, much better in terms of short-term and long-term outcomes. What I'm interested in is how can we support these married structures better? They're popular, and yet we now have 51% of children born today being the children of married families, of married parents, but that's only 51%. 49% are of cohabiting parents. And the worry is this is a trend that is accelerating. Cohabitation is overtaking marriage, and by 2030, we'll probably have more cohabiting parents than married parents. But actually, what we want is that marriage structure. Well, there are some tools in the government's toolbox to support marriage, and one of them is the married allowance. So what you can do is, right now, we have a 10% transferable tax allowance. Let's boost it. Let's make it totally transferable, because then if you have a full transferable tax allowance, the married couple gets to keep back about $2,000 a year. But more importantly, by being able to transfer to one parent, what we can have is facilitate one parent to stay home and raise their child, which is a choice most fathers and mothers want for their children. I mean, you have a fantastic job. It's an amazing career. But most mothers, well, this is not the kind of job they have. And they are doing something very pedestrian, very routine. They would love to be able to have a little bit money kept back so that they could stay at home rather than go out and leave their child. Not everything is about parenting, parenting styles and parenting stay at home, of course. We are fighting an industry that is making billions every day. And that, unfortunately, is the porn industry. And you absolutely got it right before. We are normalizing pornography. We are ensuring that pornographers are teachers and parents because they bombard our children. There's PSHE in schools. Do you know how often that is? Like once a week? Whereas the social media is the constant companion of most of our children. So we have horrific stats. We know that one in every primary classroom, one child in every primary school classroom will have received a message from a grown-up asking them to show themselves in an explicit way. That's one in every, that's scary. We know that more than half of under 16-year-olds have seen pornography. We know that 1 in 5 13 to 15-year-old girls have been asked to share a sexual image of themselves. When this is the norm, how can we expect girls to have a healthy body image? They think, I'm failing because I don't look like that porn star who I keep seeing and who my boyfriend is comparing me to, I am sure. We have boys who think gagging, kicking, violent behavior is just norm, and they're surprised when they end up on Everyone's Invited, you know, looking like the bad guy. And talking about Everyone's Invited, this is a problem that goes across the social classes. It's not just in the bottom quintile, it's right across our society. And there is something that the government can do. They can grow some and just say age verification. There are, I hate to call them ethical pornographers, but there are pornography heads of the pornography industry who want to have age verification because they know that it just ethically is looking so bad. But they need to, you know, they need to be strengthened, they need to be supported, and we need to have the brilliant culture minister, Cultural Secretary of State, Nadine Dorries, who has said that she cares about this. She's got to say to them, come into my office and let's talk. Let's make age verification the big focus of our work in the online harms bill, which is coming up the path.
I couldn't agree more. Christine, thank you so much for coming in, putting the C back into conservatism. It's been a delight to have you, and I agree with everything you say. Thank you so much. Well, joining me now is Research Fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, Dr. RAKIB EHSAN, who has written about the breakdown of the family unit. RAKIB, where do you think we're going wrong societally? Why is there an increasing risk of family breakdown?
Well, I think that firstly, when we're looking at our social policy discussions, Alex, it's far too racialised. And all too often when equality and discrimination is discussed, there's a great deal of focus on racial identity. But when you're looking at various forms of social and economic disadvantage, family structure is almost left by the wayside. It's seen as unfashionable to talk about. For some people, they would rather focus on race, gender, when looking at those forms of disadvantage. And unfortunately, if people are looking at the Conservative Party, the current day Conservative Party, to restore the family unit at the heart of social policy, I think they'll be left bitterly disappointed.
And why is that? I mean, traditionally, the Conservatives have been the party of small c conservative values, just as CRISTINA ODONE was saying. But this current government seems to have reversed far away from that heritage. But why do you think that is? Why are they not standing up for things like old-fashioned values, the sanctity of the nuclear family and family units, and doing more to protect children and encourage men and women to stay together and provide secure households for their children?
Well, I think that quite often people talk about metropolitan identitarianism within the Labour Party. The reality of the matter is that it has a degree of influence within the Conservative Party as well. I thought it was very interesting, Alex, that you said that we have a Prime Minister who's allergic to commitment. And perhaps if small c Conservatives within the UK are looking for a Prime Minister who can really spearhead an ambitious social policy programme which prioritises the family unit and the institution of marriage, the reality of the matter is that the current Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, is not really the man, based on his own personal track record. He's not the man to really spearhead that programme of social reform. We've seen a great deal of research being done, which shows that family structure is strongly associated with school attainment, cognitive development, mental health, physical well-being, employment outcomes, criminal justice involvement. And I've personally done research which shows that childhood family stability, when controlling for a range of factors, is significantly associated with current day life satisfaction. So I would love to see family restored at the heart of social policy when it comes to this current government. I just feel that the characters we have in place, including the Prime Minister, perhaps they're a bit uncomfortable over their own personal track record to really spearhead that kind of reform.
Do you think this is because there's almost been a toxification of so-called heteronormative values that, you know, the old-fashioned man meets woman, they get married, they have children, and that is the fundamental best unit within which to bring up the next generation? And that, in fact, rather than be the nanny state, and we might need a nanny state right now, considering all the harms out there that parents can't control, the government seemed to be allergic to doing anything about pushing back against this dominating discourse.
I think that we have far too many people in policy making who are afraid of talking about factors which may be considered to be unfashionable within their own social circles. As you say, the family structure is so strongly associated with a range of social and economic outcomes, but perhaps people are more comfortable in terms of talking about racial identity as a vector of disadvantage. But that really does do the overall debate a fundamental disservice, because really what we should be looking at is what works. I would like to see greater support for communities at risk of family breakdown. And I'd like to see policies which prioritise the family unit, for example, strengthening family-friendly protections for British workers, flexible working arrangements which can allow parents to spend more time with their children. I think these are the kind of things that we really need to be talking about. But all too often, the equality debate in this country is led by what is considered to be fashionable as opposed to the facts, and that is a real shame.
Dr. RAKIB EHSAN, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your views on this crucial topic. A research fellow, of course, at the Henry Jackson Society. Well, joining me now is Head of Communications for the Fatherhood Institute, Dr. Jeremy Davies. Dr. Davies, do you think that we need to be focusing primarily on men in this debate and encouraging men to want to be fathers and want to stay by their women rather than constantly feeding their sexual appetites?
I think I see this as a question rooted in gender equality as much as anything. So I think we need to recognise that families come in all shapes and sizes, and there is very good evidence about the importance of father involvement in terms of children's outcomes. And outcomes for women too, and in terms of furthering gender equality. So unless we support men to share the caregiving and earning with their partners, I'm afraid we're doomed to continue along a very sort of traditional route where, you know, the focus on traditional family values, to me, I'm afraid, reads as women staying in the kitchen. So I think it's a very important shift that is required to in our family policy to focus on supporting men to do the job that they want to do as fathers. And not just to view them as providers in the family. That's yesterday's argument. Women want to be out there earning too. So we need to be helping both men and women to share those roles.
I couldn't agree more, but how do we go about doing that in the 21st century? Because it's all very well maybe government policy stepping in, but surely it's going to be drowned out by these sort of loud, shouting, screaming pop culture narratives, which is all about instant gratification. I can't remember the last time I, saw something on television or listened to a song that seemed to extol the virtues of parenthood.
I don't know. Maybe we watch different things. I see lots of men and women from all parts of society who I think want to make a success of parenthood. I think there are an awful lot of parents out there who are doing the best they can, often in very difficult circumstances, and with actually very little support. If you think about what support we provide men, to do a good job of fatherhood, what is there? The parenting leave they have access to is pathetic and really, really badly. It's so badly paid that businesses often don't even get back from the government. There is an enormous gap between what men and women are entitled to in terms of maternity and paternity leave. It's like the biggest gap in the developed world. And we have maternity services and other family services that are almost entirely run by women and focused almost entirely on supporting women. I'm not criticising them for doing that, because obviously we need to support women, you know, as they have babies and especially in the early years. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be supporting dads too, because if we load all of this stuff onto women, where does that leave gender equality?
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.